With less than 2 months to go until the release of horror-tinged bullet hell Returnal, it feels like we've seen surprisingly little of what's been marketed as Sony's next big PS5 exclusive. And while usually that would raise us to threat level midnight, aka what exactly are they trying to hide from us and why? Sometimes it's nice to just suspend any and all misgivings that one might have and bask in the warm glow of childlike optimism and naivety. The myriad of issues that plague Cyberpunk 2077 will be rectified in a timely and transparent manner. Marvel's Avengers will have meaningful and engaging endgame content. Chocolate will rain from the sky and everything will work out alright in the end, just like it always does. So choo choo motherfuckers, all aboard the hype train. First stop, day one patches, bitter disappointment and oceans of salty tears. What could go wrong? It's an empirical fact that nothing bad has ever been born from being too hyped for a video game.
Well, what we're trying to do is make an entire universe generated by the computer.
The feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking.
These suits give players superhuman capabilities and are heavily customizable so they look and play how you want.
So, based upon what precious little we've had the pleasure to see so far of Housemarque's psychological roguelike shooter, here are 7 works of art that appear to be within the same aesthetic and thematic wheelhouse as Returnal. Essentially, it's a thinly veiled excuse for me to talk about some of my favourite weirdo sci-fi video games, books and films. We couldn't possibly discuss frenetic-paced roguelikes without paying tribute to Dead Cells, a game that defined the gold standard for the genre, an experience so flawless in its mechanical execution that it should really be the yardstick against which all others are measured. Developers Motion Twin offer up a frighteningly swift hack-and-slash experience. As the beheaded, you ricochet off walls and splintered doors, flowing with all the grace and elegance of a stream becoming a waterfall.
Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
This is all done while armed to the teeth with an endlessly rotating arsenal of weapons, tools and traps, allowing you to brute force your way through a series of increasingly hostile environments, mercilessly laying waste to anyone or anything standing in your way. Of course, death inevitably comes to knock you flat on your arse, but far from being the end, being vanquished is actually an integral part of Dead Cells' maddeningly addictive gameplay loop. A lot of the joy in Dead Cells is born from assembling a build that absolutely wrecks the opposition. A feat that is typically achieved by carefully acquiring equipment with synergetic abilities. You can pin a foe down with a wolf trap, inflict poison upon them with a grenade, and then fill them full of holes with your crossbow that deals additional damage to poison enemies. When the roguelike odds are in your favour, the results are a power fantasy that borders upon the godlike. Dead Cells deftly blends the exploratory elements of a Metroidvania with the uncompromising brutality of a Soulsborne, all into a delicious and nutritious procedural death labyrinth smoothie. But drink up and get good, you filthy scrub. Returnal seems to be ploughing the same aesthetic new weird furrow as Jeff Vandermeer's novel and film of the same name, Annihilation. Both works deal in the excruciating echoes of past traumas, in addition to including a smattering of hideous alien oddities for good measure. At its core, Annihilation is a deeply unsettling examination of the devastating toll that losing a loved one and the grief that follows can take upon a person's psyche. Driven by the loss of her husband to cancer, an illness that was seemingly caused by an expedition to the uninhabited and mysterious Area X, the book's protagonist, known only as the biologist, ventures there herself in an attempt to gain an understanding of the events that befell her late husband.
You need to know what's inside.
What awaits her are a series of increasingly confounding and disturbing discoveries. A spiral staircase that winds deep into the earth, a derelict lighthouse littered with journals from previous expeditions, and the unsettling howls of a mysterious creature that appears to be stalking her. While the film retains many of the same core elements and story beats found within Vandermeer's book, screenwriter Alex Garland's adaptation aimed to recreate the dreamlike nature and tone of the source material, as opposed to being a fully faithful adaptation of it.
You can't crossbreed different species.
This results in a series of folkloric variations and embellishments that exist between the two versions, the kind that one might expect from a tale orally passed down through generations around the gentle flicker of a campfire. Annihilation perfectly encapsulates the horror and desperation born of being trapped in an otherworldly alien environment, where everything from the vegetation, the wildlife, and the air that you breathe is actively trying to destroy you. While Returnal may not be the first game to be centred around a time loop,
Oh, hi, Majora's Mask.
it's certainly shaping up to be one of the more intense and chaotic. But what if you like your Groundhog Day simulators to be a little more reserved and thought-provoking? Well, Outer Wilds has your back. Although it may not be a horror game in any traditional sense of the term, there is something unnerving and uniquely terrifying about how Outer Wilds traps you within the same 22-minute time loop. You desperately collect and collate evidence to solve the mystery of your predicament, slowly linking tenuous snatches of information together, all while carrying the knowledge that once your time is up, the sun will go supernova, engulfing everything and everyone that you've ever known or loved. There is a deep current of predeterminate dread that runs through the heart of Outer Wilds. You are constantly wrestling with being ensnared in a fatalistic nightmare, feeling utterly powerless as the other denizens of your solar system mill about, blissfully unaware of the horrifying fate that awaits them. This uneasy sense of inescapable vastness extends to the environment design too. Navigating colossal raging typhoons or being sucked into a black hole made my stomach writhe with discomfort, my breath caught in the back of my throat as I teetered upon the edge of a genuine attack of vertigo, all while never leaving the comfort of my couch. It may be the first game I've played that manages to accurately convey and instill within me a genuine sense of awe, wonder and terror at the unknowable void of space. Yet in spite of this, Outer Wilds also manages to possess a cosy, genial quality, a fact that it owes to the indomitable strength of its writing and world building. I found myself utterly enthralled with uncovering as much as I possibly could about each planet and its inhabitants, each new discovery bringing me one step closer to solving the mystery around which everything else orbits.
I think I am reliving my memories in that house, but not fully. They're corroded.
Throughout the few Returnal trailers we've seen, there's been an increasing number of hints at some sort of potential trauma associated around a house that protagonist Celine used to live in. When you combine this with the mysterious, ever-changing modular nature of her environment, you have a similar set of narrative ingredients to those of Mark Z. Danielewski's debut novel, House of Leaves. The tale of creeping domestic paranoia that Danielewski weaves across multiple narratives unnerves and intrigues in equal measure, sinking its hooks deep into your unconscious mind until you find yourself feverishly stalking the rooms of your house, wondering to yourself, has that door always been there? House of Leaves is a triumph of postmodernistic horror, told largely through the rambling and jumbled journal entries of tattoo artist Johnny Truant and an academic essay which studies a film called The Navidson Record. Johnny comes upon this essay in his new apartment and gradually falls into the grips of an obsessed mania, as he cannot find a single iota of evidence that indicates the existence of the Navidson Record. Johnny's paranoid descent into delusion mirrors the struggles of the Navidson family, who upon moving into a new house discover a door that leads into a vast labyrinth, the dimensions of which defy the physical constraints of their new familial abode.
Turn back, Sarah.
The family's attempts to comprehend and chart the topography of this confounding discovery is told to us through the aforementioned academic essay, and becomes just as much about their strained interpersonal relationships as it is about the looming sense of doom brought on by the unknowable nature of their new home. As well as playing with the structural form of the narrative, strains of metafiction begin to creep into Danielewski's work as he warps the typography and layout of the pages, purposely disorientating and misleading the reader, making them an active participant within the story, as well as echoing his protagonist's attempts to comprehend the enigmas laid out before them. Reading House of Leaves is an intimidating and formidable prospect, a notion compounded even further by its hefty physical stature.
239 pounds? I'm a whale!
But if you push past any reservations you might have, you'll be rewarded with a deeply engaging and unforgettable experience, quite unlike anything else you'll have ever read. Upon seeing the technicolor firework display that constitutes combat in Returnal for the first time, I couldn't help but be reminded of Nier Automata, a game that consists of a gloriously stylish hodgepodge of genres and mechanics. Director Yoko Taro smashes together the best parts of Bayonetta and Ikaruga with the meta-narrative bombast of Metal Gear Solid into an utterly mesmerising gameplay experience. As you tirelessly hack and slash your way towards one of Automata's 26 wild and weird endings, controlling the scantily clad gothic Lolita android known as 2B, you'll be struck by a singular notion. The robot, the glitch, and the audacity of this bitch. Yes, this game is something else. You'll be slicing up adorable chibi machines one moment, witnessing them engage in a massive orgy the next, then finally watching them give birth to a smooth genitaled Ken doll. It is to say, at the very least, more than a little bit far out. Yet all of this anime-indebted weirdness is underpinned by the existential quandary at the thematic core of Nier Automata. What does it mean to be human? Is it the relationships that we form? The social structures under which we live? Or the way our experiences and memories shape our sense of self? Nier wrangles with these notions across the backdrop of a proxy war, one being fought between androids and machines on the behalf of humans and aliens. It poses these questions in a way that has you constantly questioning the morality of your actions. Some combat encounters can become quite uncomfortable as machines call out in fear, begging for their lives as you cut them down. Yet in spite of the moral ambiguity it presents, the combat is an absolute joy to experience. You seamlessly slip between landing deft blows with your katana and pulling back to defensively lay down a hail of support gunfire, all while dodging and weaving around enemy projectiles. One character's heavy attack is even replaced with a hacking minigame that takes the form of a twin-stick bullet hell. If you hadn't guessed this already from my hyperbolic ramblings, Nier Automata offers up a truly mesmerising experience, and despite being somewhat thematically overwrought, it's still a game that will stick with you long after you've rolled the credits for the 26th and final times. The general premise for Returnal recalls certain aspects of Ridley Scott's Alien, in particular the call to adventure taking the form of a mysterious communication transmission, as well as one of the trailers featuring a creature that bears a striking resemblance to a facehugger. Yet in spite of these similarities, there is another classic, atmospherically rich horror film of that era that I can't help but pray that Housemarque have been taking notes from. Nothing quite captures the feeling of being trapped in an Antarctic research facility while a parasitic alien lifeform meticulously assimilates and imitates your colleagues, quite like John Carpenter's seminal 1982 horror masterpiece, The Thing.
It is going to scare the shit out of you.
Despite being a wonderfully terrifying proponent for the visceral superiority of practical effects, the real star of the show is the paranoia that sweeps like wildfire through the research crew. It's a truly marvellous experience to watch them gradually turn upon each other as they wrestle with the fact that any one of them at any time could be harbouring the alien just beneath the surface of their own skin.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch!
Jump scares are few and far between. Instead, Carpenter relies heavily upon the brewing unrest between crew members to build tension, an atmosphere which he artfully punctuates with overblown, gory set pieces, before once again swiftly enveloping everything in an oppressive ambience of disquiet. If I was ever presented with the opportunity to have my mind erased Men in Black style, I would jump at the chance. Who needs cherished memories of long past friends or family members when you can watch The Thing with truly fresh eyes once again? You see, there are a lot of important firsts in life, but all of them pale in significance when put up against your first sweet hit of Carpenter's magnum opus. If you want to experience fantastic worlds that seem just as uniquely weird as the one Housemarque have conjured up in Returnal, then you can't really go wrong with the wildly varied works of comic book author extraordinaire Jeff Lemire. Having worked on runs of Marvel heavy hitters such as All New Hawkeye, Extraordinary X-Men and Old Man Logan, Lemire's talent really shines in his original creations, of which I present to you 3 of his finest. First up is Descender, a violently explosive yet heartfelt space opera that follows Tim 21, a young companion robot who, after unintentionally spending 10 years asleep, awakens alone in a world divided by anti-android sentiment, a societal schism that was brought around by the mysterious appearance of giant orbital robots called Harvesters who annihilated large quantities of life yet spared androids. The quest to understand Tim 21's connection to these Harvesters is the mystery at the core of Descender, and it's all brought to life by the gorgeous and expressive brushwork of artist Dustin Nguyen. Up next is Black Hammer, which follows a group of superpowered has-beens who find themselves banished from existence into a purgatory from which there is no escape. Once the revered and lauded champions of Spiral City, they now reluctantly lead a much simpler existence in a rural farming village, a place where they desperately struggle to come to terms with the reality of their new existence. By transplanting these golden age of comic book era style heroes into a life of domestic drudgery, Lemire lays bare the effects that a significant fall from status and power can have upon one's mental well-being and sense of self. And finally, we have Gideon Falls, a twisted, interconnected tale of a sprawling city and a rural town, and the mysterious and otherworldly entity known as the Black Barn that somehow connects the two. The story flits between a reclusive and obsessive young man who picks through the city garbage, and the washed-up ex-alcoholic priest who becomes embroiled in a murder upon arriving in his new parish. Tonally, it exists somewhere between Twin Peaks and the first season of True Detective, so naturally I am obsessed with it. So there we have it, 7 bizarre and beastly creative works that you need to check out if you're even remotely excited for the release of Returnal late next month. The 30th of April may as well be my birthday, Christmas and Easter rolled into one. Because I can't wait to die over and over again in an attempt to break the cycle and get to the bottom of the mysteries at the heart of this upcoming roguelike bullet hell bonanza.